Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Thank you very much. Today's Truth Minute comes from the book of 1 John, chapter 4, verse 7. And it says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Verse 11 goes on to say, Beloved, if God so loved us, we ought to love one another. We are in this world to love one another. And as we talk about the truth, as we bring the truth to you, this is our show of love to everyone. And we encourage each one of us to love one another. This is the Truth Minute for today.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
There you have it. There you have it. Brothers, sisters, love one another. Let's show some love. Let's show some love. It is good to be back, Kenan.
Yeah, it's good to be
It
back.
is Collins. Good to see you, man. I'm excited to hear your voice.
Good to see you.
You know, after doing the live, we fumbled. But at least you had a haircut. That was good. That was good.
I had something to do with that.
You had something to do with that. Thank
Who
you.
are you?
A
We don't
haircut
know who you
always
are.
helps.
But
I think you've already had the voice, that is going to be here today.
she stole our punchline.
A punchline, but
it's
it's
all right.
okay.
It's okay. We'll come back.
Thank you so much. I just want to begin by saying thank you so much for those of you who are able to tune in, from our first live session. Shout out to Victor. Thank you to Aizo. Thank you to, Duncan. Amazing three gentlemen who, are changing the narrative, and we're excited about that. So we want to continue with this conversation, but I just want to say to a couple of things, and also Dr. Karen. Thank you to Dr. Karen also, who was there from the professional perspective. I just want to say that tremendous feedback.
Yeah.
And what encourages me is that, let me ask Collins, what are you guys hearing first before we bring our guest today? What has stood out since the live? What have you heard in a second?
I think we should reflect on that.
Yes, reflect on that.
Yeah,
Let's take a first few minutes to reflect about it.
Well, I see people who have suffered a lot in their life, and they've been so down, but then they've bounced back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is the theme that is coming through, and it gives hope. If there is anyone out there that is suffering or that feels like he's afraid of life, there is a lot more to life. There's a lot more to life.
Listen, Collins, whoever's listening to this, that theme you just said, they don't want to miss. They need to just sit down and listen because we're going to keep on building on that, right?
Yeah.
Kenan, what stands out?
For me, what stood out is there's a willingness to share.
Yes.
The guests were willing to share. And what they were afraid of and what they were trying to not have is being demonized because of their story.
Yes.
So that's the willingness to share. And also Dr. Karen brought a very, very different perspective that there is help out there.
Yes.
And we as our people, we need to learn to
ask for that help.
So that was beautiful.
And anyways, it's not about us.
It's not about us.
It's never about us, right? So let me give my 2 points and then we just dive into the conversation today. One, out of the live session, we are studying a group, for people who would like to be part of that group and just meet once a month and just share what they're going through. Victor, Aizo, and Duncan, they're going to be part of that group. So if you're out there and you don't want to come here, there's another spot for you now. There's another place for you just to come and have those conversations once a month. More information coming. Number two, you all remember Duncan. Right, Duncan was there, and he's coming. He's coming to this podcast soon. So I want to remind you all that our friend Duncan, if you go back and listen to his story, he's determined and is doing everything he can. He's getting his. After being homeless for a while, he's now getting his own place this weekend. Man, listen, it's a graduation. We are celebrating.
I think it was this past Friday.
It's this coming Friday.
It's this past Friday.
It's the past Friday. It's the past Friday.
The 19th. This 19th, Friday, he moved into his.
But we promised that we will help him settle into the house. We'll help him get everything he needs in the house. So anyone who wants to support that initiative, that cause, it's Cash App, Ezra. KE, $ Ezra KE, EZRAKE. Send us whatever you have, and we'll keep you posted as how he's doing. When he comes, he will share with us his story. So, with that being done and said, today we have a guest. It's nice to hear female voice.
It's nice to hear female voice.
It's nice to hear female voice.
I'm so used to hearing these rough voices of yours.
Today it's nice to hear female voice. So, our guest today, introduce yourself. Tell us your name. Tell us why you're here, why you're excited to be here, because I know you are. And I can tell you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself as we don't introduce yourselves. We already know you. So let's just jump to the guest.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. My name is Rehema Murekezi. I'm from Rwanda, and I grew up in Zambia and a little bit of Tanzania. So I'm Kenyan by association.
Nice.
And I'm here to speak about how I started a business after I survived 4 suicide attempts, a few drug use here and there, mental health, and how you can just get over everything but still lead a faithful, good life with support.
So what she wants to get out of this, someone to get out of this podcast is you can do it. And you can thrive like she's thriving.
Yes, you can.
Yep. All right. Well, that's
like
a good
Obama
preamble.
said, yes, we can.
Punchline, just punchline. 4 suicide attempts. That itself is a whole podcast.
That's a whole podcast.
That itself. So again, we're here.
We're here.
Don't move.
And we are. It's brave of you to just even say that. And we are in here. We're proud of you for agreeing to share. Maybe we should start with she has a business. So that haircut you are
looking good.
Yes,
that's why you met her.
You feel good.
She is responsible for that haircut. I'll tell you a story how I met Rehema.
Yes.
So Aizo's story again.
Yes.
Aizo's story has very many friends, and there was this one friend, Joji. Joji, has listened.
Yes.
Churches has listened, and he's always supported. So and then I saw their friends, I think, and he was promoting the page. So I needed a haircut for the live session. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
it looked good, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So I reached out to Rehema, and that when we started talking, I thought about the podcast, and she was ready and willing to share her story. She didn't even hesitate to say she's ready and willing to share her story. So I want to big you up for that. That's powerful.
Tell us the name of the business.
So she should be the one saying.
Hello.
Yes.
The name of the business is called Rehema's Cut. And the reason why I chose this name was because I wanted people to ask me why I chose to name it that way. But it's also because when people sit in my chair, we get to talk about not just hair. We talk about mental health. We talk about the realisticness of life. So when I do say that I started a business of hair cutting, it's more than just hair cutting. It's let's share ideas on how to seek help in our community because most of us are shamed. Because, you didn't finish school. Because of this and that. Let's take the shame away and go back to the fact that we're human beings.
Yes.
And that when we stop to shame people will feel comfortable to seek help.
Yeah, nice.
And we won't have to hear about people committing suicide because there's something we can do and we can do better.
So where can we find you?
You can find me in Eden Prairie at the moment. I have a location that's opening on the 24th of next month, and it's West End, St. Louis Park, wonderful location. And I invite you to come out because I also like to call myself a social butterfly, even though I used to have a lot of anxiety. But what I've come to find is that I tend to have people meet through me because I am people. I am friends with a lot of different people.
Yes.
So...
Maybe your Instagram handles, your social media handles.
Oh, yes. So you can visit me at rehemascut.com. And my Instagram is called Rehemas Cut, LLC. And my Facebook is also called Rehemas Cut. But you can also go to my personal Facebook page, which is Rehema the Savage. And on that website, you can definitely ask me anything about how to seek help comfortably.
Right. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I want to go there, get a haircut already.
You need a haircut, my brother.
I think
you need a haircut and a physical.
You didn't have to go there, Ken. but I like the fact that even the name has a meaning.
Yeah.
There's a purpose behind that.
True.
And it tells a story in itself. So
And I easily connect because I have a sister who is called Rehema.
It means mercy.
Ken, you're home already. I mean, Colin's already home.
Rehema.
You know.
Wow, yeah.
Rehema. That's nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Rehema,
Yes.
you have affiliation with many countries.
I do.
You're born in Rwanda, raised in Zambia, lived in
Tanzania.
TZ, Kenyan by association. How did you end up in the US? That's the part that we need to get to know.
In the U.S., I share that with a lot of Rwandese people. As you know, you may not know, but there was a genocide in 1994. And at the time, I was about 3.5. So most of us had to escape to go to Uganda. And some people were fortunate enough to go to first world countries, but some of us stayed back. So we stayed back in the refugee camps for about, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 5-6 years. And during those times, being a young child, I would say that's where some of the trauma came from. And it would be naive to say that most Africans didn't get trauma from the things that we have experienced. So I think what we need to be realistic with ourselves is, where do I come from? And now where am I going? Are these things so different that I actually have to sit down and see if my mindset is going to accept it, or if I'm going to be so shocked that my mind will be so shocked that I have to, the anxiety, the little he-ness, not being able to speak a language, cultural differences. So coming to America, of course, people were applying, and then the American embassy would say yes or no. And luckily, my family was approved. So we came to America in 2004. That was Boston.
Okay.
And in Boston, I was being bullied by a few boys, but weird enough, their father would call me Bonita, which meant beautiful. So at that age, at 14, it was almost like, okay, so kids my age are bullying me, yet their father is hitting on me. And I don't understand the language so well. So then that's where my mother started to say, don't hang out with boys, do this and that. But that keeps you away from being social because I have 4 brothers. So I was comfortable around boys. But then you're telling me not to hang out with boys. So all of that just starts to make you shy, but I don't think it's the good shy. It's where like, okay, if you see me talk to a boy, you're going to assume something. So let me not talk to a boy. But I don't get along with girls because that little anxiety thing. And with girls too, I think they make us compare ourselves to each other in a weird way.
So at what age did you, so now Rwanda, refugee, and then Zambia, at what age did you
what's the chronological time?
I see.
Yeah,
so in Zambia, we moved to Zambia in 2000. And around that time, I was about 10 years old. And at 12 is when I started to be pursued by like grown men, because I feel like I grew up a little sooner physically, but that's also an excuse that sometimes we tend to give certain men to almost justify what they were doing.
Right.
And then, so 2004 is when we came to America. 2005, we moved to Minnesota and then went to high school. High school, you meet a lot of Africans, and that's where you get to realize that it's not just you. ESL classes where you learn English, and then you get to find out that, oh, I'm not the only one who doesn't know English, so it's a lot of us. But that doesn't take away the fact that you're still that foreigner. People look at you, have an accent, those weird questions that you get when you come from Africa, all of those things. We all went through that. So I think sometimes it's how we perceive things or how we walk away. Are we offended by what that person asked, or are we going to educate them and walk away feeling confident? Or am I going to feed in with the fact that, yes, I lived in the refugee camps, now I'm in America, but it doesn't take away it doesn't take away from me being a person just because of that. So goes back to not being ashamed. And just,
Wow.
Here we are in Minnesota.
She has dropped points.
I'm telling you.
I was seeing an identity crisis.
I
I don't know.
I think you came here as a teenager.
Yes.
All right.
Tough.
So how is that phase
Right.
of you? Some of us struggle just moving from Ramsey to Broken Park, just identity crisis. How was that phase for you as a teenager? Because it's not only just physical move, but also there's mental, there's social, there's all this. How was that for you, being accepted, embraced? How was that for you?
I feel like I later on tuned it out. So it almost became like, okay, I'm a teenager, yet I'm not able to have I had friends when I was in Tanzania, but what used to happen was our father would tell us that the next day we're going to get on a bus and go somewhere else. So we never had the time to say bye to any friends. So then the trauma of just up and leaving, that also stayed with us too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so constantly moving away, but not having a foundation to be like, okay, I have that friend. Until I was 15, I hadn't known a friend for more than 3 years because it was move. But
so it was hard for you to form lasting relationships.
yes, because it was like, well, we're gonna move again.
Yeah.
We will move again.
Was that intentional for you, not to form those relationships?
I don't think it was intentional. It was just what I had grown up with.
Right.
So it was the norm.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But
Wow.
at that age,
At that age, you're still figuring yourself out. You're trying
Yes.
to see where are we gonna go. And for you, it was countries.
Yes.
It wasn't
countries.
estates. It wasn't
Yes.
cities. It was countries.
Countries,
and
yeah.
languages,
Different
and
language.
cultures.
The language.
Different dressing. Different weather.
Weather, bipolar
Smell.
weather for Minnesota.
Exactly. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
And then
Yeah.
also you're growing.
Yes.
You're in that stage from
Yeah.
childhood to a teenager. So there's a lot of changes happening in your life.
Yes.
and she's female.
She's expound on that.
I can
Let Rehema expound.
why are you
You're a
asking
male.
me?
You're a male.
You're
I want
asking
you
me to explain.
Rehema.
Yes, Kenan, be careful on that one.
But yeah, go ahead.
So how I can explain that one is, as we all know in our African communities, it is very emphasized that a lady needs to know how to cook, how to maneuver, all of that.
Yes.
Now, the woman that I am right now, I am very domestic, but I am other things as well. But I choose to be those other things.
Yes.
So when I was growing up, other kids could stay after school, but I couldn't stay after school because I had to go home and cook for the brothers and everybody. And also with that too, that's where the anxiety and the depression came in, because I got so used to it. Home, go to cook, clean for your brothers. Brothers don't have to do the dishes, they're boys. I got used to it. But the day that I realized that it wasn't normal was when my cousin from Germany visited, and I was in the kitchen cooking, and then I was bringing everything, and my brothers were sitting down. And then my cousin said, "You work this girl too much. She should come to Germany with me for a year." So when my father heard, I think it was my mother, they're like, "Oh no, she's a girl. She's used to it." But then we're in America where other girls were staying after school, they didn't have to go home and cook. Although didn't mean that I was the only one doing it, but hearing him say that made me look at myself out of myself and say, you're actually not doing like kid things. These American tradition things. Even prom, I almost didn't go to prom. So you would think that that shouldn't affect me, but that's why I say that where we come from and where we come into, different society things. Prom is a tradition in America. So as kids, teenagers, before you graduate high school, that's like a thing for you. So just things not lining up with how we're being raised in our homes and our traditions, and then now we're in a different country where we have to compromise.
Yes.
But then our mothers might think that we're disrespecting them. But it's like, no, I have to compromise with how you're raising me and how I'm going to school.
So Rehema, if I hear you, you're talking about battling two cultures.
Yes.
There is the African culture of that is patriarchal and how things are done. Then there's a Western culture where, it's capitalist in itself. It's you do your thing, take care of yourself and everything. So at school, you're being someone else. But then at home, there's a different expectation. Does this sound familiar from other
podcast? Yeah.
podcasts we've done, Collins?
It sounds very familiar, and this is a sentiment that was brought up by Izo.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had it in Victor. It's the same experience.
And what does that tell us about the culture of immigrants? What are they really wrestling? I think there's a deeper.
Yeah, and I think, Ezra, if there is a culture of
If there
immigrants,
is-
if there is
yes.
one, I think all these stories, I think all of them are trying to find what that culture was. The parents here are saying this is what it is. The kids think this is what it is. At school, this is what. So there isn't a defined immigrant culture.
It's
I think it's a transition. Transition culture.
Transitional culture, exactly.
Transitional culture where you're so used to living in a certain way, and for her, I can see adverse childhood experiences, which first she experienced genocide. Okay, so that affects her negatively. She has to move, and it's a major move. For us, it's from Brooklyn Park to Ramsey, but for her,
It's countries.
It's countries.
Yes.
Moving from one country to the other. Now, when you go to the new country, there is a language barrier. And that's a big one, especially for kids.
Yes.
You know? And then from this country, she doesn't stay in that country that long. She moves to another country. That's another language barrier again.
And she's
And you can remember some of the experiences you went through, and you can distinguish between the two countries.
I do, because if I remember a situation in Boston. That's where we first came to.
Yeah.
And we lived in a mainly Hispanic area. So because, in Zambia, we were supposed to learn English, but our teacher never spoke English. So I know how to say hello.
So
my
wait
name
a
is
minute.
this.
Your teacher was supposed to teach you English, but she never.
Exactly. We learned more Kinyanja than we did English, unfortunately. So we come to America, and of course, they put you in those ESL classes. So what I didn't know was, I didn't know the difference between English and Spanish. So most of the students in my class, they were Hispanic, and they would speak Spanish amongst themselves.
Yes.
Whew. So a little depression would come in. It would be like, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't speak English.
So you're feeling like you can't speak English, neither can you speak Spanish, because.
But I don't even know it's Spanish.
You didn't even know it was Spanish.
Yeah, it's just like, why am I the only one in this class and I can't speak the language they're teaching, yet they can? But it was Spanish, it wasn't English.
Wow.
So in a mind, then, like you said, language barriers. So if I even had known a little bit of English, maybe I would have known that, wait, that's not
English.
if I had heard Spanish.
Yeah.
But that went with that.
And you're still trying to maneuver that.
Yes.
You know, if there's any young person, let me not. I'm not minimizing anyone's problems.
No.
But for sure, I didn't go through Rehema went through when I relocated. You know. So just being here, we want to celebrate you. We want to say that you've this far, you've made it through all those, and I know your story is just getting started.
At least when you came, you spoke English.
I spoke English,
which you were forced to speak in high school.
Are you sure?
What's up with you today? You have issues with
man, I missed you guys, man.
I think we're not doing any other live. No, this will be the case. Anyways, Rehema, as you see, we always have tried to make
it's
it like
good. Laughter is good for the heart.
So let me ask, when do you start knowing that you've been depressed? You've mentioned those. Walk us through that journey, how you get there now. How that day you hear your father, and it's like, where do you go from there?
When was the first attempt, and what precipitated? How did you get there?
Oh, so this comes down to that whole point of making sure that parents give their children the freedom to choose what they would like to do for school. Because when I was in high school, first of all, I was not a good student. Now that I'm older, I don't think I'm unwise. You know, life teaches you things, but I wasn't good at school. So because I wasn't good at school, that also made me feel somehow, because then it's like, okay, I'm coming here for 8 hours a day. If I don't pass my classes, what did I come here for? And first of all, I can't even say I don't want to go. I have to go. So after I graduated high school, I wanted to go to college away from home. But certain family members felt that I was too young to go, so they didn't let me go. Now, because I didn't go, but I really wanted to go so that I can get away from home and learn something else. something else. But they said no. So I went to community college. But with that community college, I chose business management because they wanted me to do nursing. You know, that's our famous nursing, a celebrity career. So bless those who do it, though.
If nursing was a person, it would be a celebrity in our community.
So I go to school, but what I did was I disliked what I was doing so much, so I didn't pay attention. I'm a very passionate person. I really am. And that's when I started to learn a little more about myself too. If I don't like it, I will tolerate it for a little bit, or I'll compromise, but I won't do it for a long time. So I would skip school and I would go do dance. But my parents didn't know that, of course. It's just, but when I was in high school too, nobody had ever came to school to look at my report cards. So in a way, school-wise, I was my own parent. If I failed the class, nobody knew.
Nobody knew.
So that also caused me to not put any effort into it. So a year into school, of course, don't laugh at me. I went to North Hennepin for a year. The only class I ever passed was a gym class.
Congratulations for that.
Thank
We're not
you.
laughing.
3 credits. So, but after that, my parents ended up going to Africa. And after that, I said, you know what? I respected my parents so much that I almost worshipped them. But as I started to realize that I was being held back from me being my own person, expressing myself, it's not that I disrespected them, but I started to look at them as human beings as well. So I also started to know the faults. And that's the thing. We tend to respect our parents, but we also realize that they're human beings. So respect them, but also understand that they may not know everything about you. They may not know everything for you, what's best for you. So once they left, I enrolled myself into beauty school. Beauty school, it was supposed to be 9 months. Reggae Fest was there. That's when I had started to go out partying. I met wonderful Kenyan people that we would hang out, and I got into the drinking. But what I realized was that I was going out because I had been closed in for so long, even expressing myself. I never used to smile. And you start to almost feel like a brick that's just sitting there, yet you know that your mind wants to express itself. So then everybody becomes not an enemy per se, but you want to have fun so much to almost make up for the lack of you feeling like you can make your own decisions. But me making that decision to go to beauty school, that was for me. Because as you can see now, it is that very same diploma that I've used to start this business. And that's why it all comes back to say, let your children choose something that they're passionate about, so that even if they may go through something like this, hair cutting was always there for me. I would go into hospitals for a month, 2 months, and I would come out. Finding a job was easy because I had the license. But as soon as I got behind that chair and that person came in and sat down and I said, how are you doing today? And they say, I am well, but I lost my job today. I am well, but they tell me something. Not to say that I was happy that other people were going through something, but you guys, there's a way that when you hear someone go through something that is a little worse than what you're going through, kind of makes you say, take a step back, breathe, and realize that maybe things aren't that bad. But with mental health, I couldn't keep that flow going. So I had to remind myself. I had to find reasons to remind myself all the time. But going to beauty school is a decision that I will forever be proud of myself for making. If anybody feels like I disrespected them because I chose to go to beauty school, I salute you, but I do not apologize. Because passion, I may not make the most money. And that's the thing. I've slept in a car when I had a job. But it's because I didn't want to be at a house where I wasn't comfortable. Not because I'm uncomfortable, but sometimes as a grown person, when you feel like you're a burden, you just would rather sit on the highway than have you be a problem to somebody. So me being a lady, I've slept in a car where I've had undercover police officers come to me thinking that I'm a prostitute and flash money, but I would just drive away and find the next parking place to drive to park.
Rehema,
Sorry.
No. You don't need to apologize.
Don't.
I think we need to take a break here.
Yeah.
But as we go for this break, couple of things. One is you've mentioned your parents a lot and experience and stuff. That's the word I was gonna ask. You understand that in your opinion, was these because they're also transitioning. They also come into a foreign country.
Yes.
They also don't know even English. Maybe if you don't know, for them to go and check your grades, they probably. I'm assuming that. So do you think you still have a? I don't know how to ask this question, but you get is that the struggle they were struggling too in their own way that it affected you?
Yes, and it is now that I've come to understand my parents, and not just my own parents, but those of other Africans who have come here. Like you say, we all transitioned. First of all, a younger mind will learn a language faster than an older mind will.
Yeah.
Our parents have been used to those traditions for how long? So, as a teenager, though, that's something you don't think about. You just say, oh, my life sucks. Why are you doing this to me? What? But you don't think about how your mother and father are working overnight every single day so that you and your siblings can eat. But that's the beautiful thing about growing older and wiser. Now that I sit here, I do remember back where, let's say my father goes to work and he speaks a word in English and somebody disrespects him. That hurts him more than it hurts me. And it hurts me more than it hurts me if somebody says, oh, you spoke English wrongly. So those are things that we as kids also do need to keep in mind.
Sure.
So it's almost like the kids and the parents have to be patient with each other so we can all transition
Yeah.
Awesome.
correctly.
Awesome.
Ezra,
Let's go for that break.
let's go for that. But when we come back, we want to dive a little bit more on now your lowest points, lowest points in your life. And we'll also revisit like your relationship with your parents. And I want you to tell that young person who's having a struggle with relating to their parents, just what do you have for them? But we'll do that when we come back. So Ezra, as we are on this break, again, we want to remind folks to the fund we have for Duncan.
Yes.
So just go to Cash App and support us. And thank you for subscribing and following us on the podcast. We really appreciate that. And if you have a story to share, you want to share, please reach out to us, amazingtruthpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Amazing Truth Podcast, Instagram, Amazing Truth Podcast, and everywhere. WhatsApp, everything is over there.
Yes. For the support for Duncan, it's Cash App at Ezra, EZRAKE. So far, thank you for those who have poured their hearts out. Really, really do appreciate. Our brother is already in his new apartment, but we want to make him settled in well. So, and for those of you who are wondering why, stay tuned because he will be here to tell us how that went. Right?
Right.
And those who don't have Cash App, you can bring cash.
Anywhere
you meet AZ.
Kenan and Collins.
Yeah, if you have reach out to Facebook or to us, email us if you want to. You don't have the means to give that support.
Yeah,
we'll find a way.
Yes, and also remember the once a month group.
Yes,
that's a once a month group.
Dennis, Duncan,
Victor.
Izo, and Victor will be part of the pilot group.
Yes,
for this one. We'll give you more details as we go.
Yep.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at The Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Wow, Ezra.
Yes.
Kenan. This is a different podcast.
Listen, Collins,
Man.
How you feeling?
We're learning a lot of things. Thanks, listeners. Those who are still taking their drinks, take them quickly and settle down.
Yes.
Because we are about to hit 60 miles per hour.
Yes.
It tells you how fast Collins drives.
Yeah. I thought he was going to say 90.
But it's a good citizen, a law-abiding citizen, right?
He's very careful.
Strive to be like Collins.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes.
Always. Yes.
All right. Well, welcome back, Rehema.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
I feel good. Thanks
good.
for having me again. I really appreciate that.
All right. So where did we leave Collins?
Man, Rehema was telling us about her struggles and how she had there was a misunderstanding between her and her parents, and she's realizing it now as a grown up. So we were going towards the first attempt.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened, and that's the journey we are on right now.
Yep.
Awesome. In case you missed the first part, that's why you need to go back and listen, because Collins is just giving a high level spiel, right?
Yeah.
But Rehema, you ended the last part talking about you talk to a young person who's having a hard time with their parents.
Okay. So what I would say is this. Your parents love you. In our communities, our parents don't usually verbally say they love us. But that's where we have to not compare ourselves to different cultures so much and really realize where we do come from. And our parents say they love us by providing food, shelter, and I think we've seen those memes. But to a certain degree, they really are true. So also realizing that you are in a different society, it's okay to sit your parents down and talk to them. We don't have to be scared of our parents anymore. And I think that's a thing that we used to have in Africa, where like a parent couldn't sit down with their child and have a conversation. But let's not fear each other. Let's talk to each other.
Very true.
They're your parents. What's the worst they can do? Strangle you? That's illegal in America. So talk to them.
It's illegal
Talk to them.
everywhere.
It's illegal everywhere. Sorry about that. It's illegal everywhere. Should be illegal everywhere. So just talk to them. And but I also think that from a parent's view, I think certain parents want their kids to be so perfect. So when they notice certain things about their children that they didn't like or that they don't like, then they shame them. But when you shame a child, why would I come to talk to you about something when you're just going to say, why did you do that? Why weren't you thinking? So I think it all comes down to, let's be patient with each other. They're your children, but be patient with them. They're also people.
Yeah.
That's true. I was telling someone that I think parents need, before people get married, before people get children, we need classes.
Yes.
Yes.
Bringing up brains is risky business, man.
That's why I feel honored when people let me cut their hair, because the head houses the brains. It is an honor.
Rehema, you connect everything to the head.
Because their mind.
Exactly. This is nice.
Kenya they say akili ni nywele.
Akili ni
Your
nywele.
hair is
Akili
your
ni
brain.
Akili ni nywele. Ama ni mali. Canada, please. You went to school in India. Anyways, let's come back here. So Rehema, how do you now, this relationship, your parents have gone back home. I heard you mention that you slept in your car, and undercover cops will come and try to walk us the journey. How does that journey progress to a point you become depressed, to a point where you're thinking you're actually attempting suicide?
So the first time, I personally didn't even know that I was trying to commit suicide, because I didn't know what suicide was at the moment. So I had left my parents' home. At this time, they had came back, but they were living with us, with our brothers. And I had left home, and I was living with a few friends. But at this time, I had graduated beauty school. But what I had to do was go do the test so that I can get my license and work in a salon. But I got distracted with the partying. But that's where sometimes I come to think that some things are just supposed to happen. So I was living with some friends, partying almost every day, drinking. And I try to keep a job here and there. But looking at what me and my family have been through, and not being close to them, yet being with those friends and drinking day in and day out, the depression was growing so much. but also it was the fact that I was away from my family, but I was also ashamed at the fact that if they found out what I was doing, they wouldn't be proud. But then it was like, it's okay for me to take a drink and not be judged by my family. But it was the way that it was going. So unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because sometimes we tend to meet people who are not good influences, but they say you don't always learn from good things. Sometimes you learn from the bad. So I just happened to date a man who was into drugs. And those drugs were K2 and weed. So at that time, because I started to drink when I was 21, and I believe I started to smoke weed 23 and a half-ish. So it was later. And that's what I came to realize, that if anybody ever tried to blame my mental health on drugs, they would be wrong. Because those things started before. And at a certain point, I wanted to be addicted to something so that I can have something to blame it on. That makes sense.
You're saying a very pregnant point. Now, what pregnant? I had to throw it in. A very pregnant point.
We know what you mean.
I say that because it's similar what Aizo was saying. Is that and Victor, there were some underlying issues before actually they get into this substance abuse. And so I just want to reinforce that you're actually building on what we've been hearing throughout the whole thing.
And for you, you had these struggles mentally. You had these struggles. So for substances, and correct me if I'm wrong, for substances, it was a way for you to numb that pain, or even get away from it, or what was
it? Hopelessness.
Yeah.
For me, because my family couldn't see that I wasn't okay, or people couldn't see that I wasn't okay, because if Rehema was smiling, having fun, then it meant that I was okay, but I wasn't okay. So the drugs was almost like, if my family knows how I am naturally, let me do these drugs. If you see me act differently, then maybe you would say, what's going on?
Exactly. Now,
so you are crying for attention.
Yeah.
But no, it's not really attention. It's almost like, I'm telling you, I know. So if you say that you know me, right? You should know that something is off.
Oh, I see what you're saying there.
So, but if you can't see it, let me try to have you see that something is off, because I've told you, but you don't believe me. Now what's left? Let me show you. So the first time I tried to commit suicide, I took a lot of, what is it? What's that pill that makes you sleep? It's for allergies.
I think we'll not say it. So
yeah, we don't want to encourage.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we don't have to say it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
So, but the reason, my mind was, I just want to sleep. It was not, I didn't know what suicide was. This was 2013. But before, I had texted her. She was in Iowa. I texted her and my sister and my father.
And who's her?
Who's her?
Kezi, my friend. I'm sorry, I was pointing. Kezi, my friend.
We're not live.
No, but she brought a support friend for us. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then, where were we?
So
my friend.
You wanted to sleep. You didn't know what
so I texted them. But this is shortly after I had argued with that ex-boyfriend. It was very toxic because he was drunk, high, this, that, just not wanting to live that normal life that Rehema was trying to be forced into. So he left him, and sadly, it was another person who passed away not too long ago. We were hanging out. So he leaves, and then I was left in that apartment by myself. And I thought to myself, I said, what is life? But then again, it's not that I didn't want to exist. And that's why when they first asked me, I said, no, I wasn't trying to kill myself, because I didn't know what it was. But they had to pump my stomach at the hospital. So after that, I think my family noticed that, oh, okay, maybe there is an issue. But once again, it wasn't to cry for help. There's a where you get tired to explain yourself. And then you're just like, let me just suffer this by myself. So after that, life kind of went back to normal, but not really. And the second time,
what's normal? When you say life?
What is your normal?
Yeah, what is it? What does normal? What do you mean by normal?
To me, normal life meant that I woke up and I was happy at the fact that I was up. Because for a while, I would wake up, and if I opened my eyes and I saw that I saw something, I would get sad because it meant that I was alive. So it's not that I wanted to be blind. I just didn't want to feel, like I didn't want to see. Because you feel empty, invisible. But because you're surrounded by so many people, yet you feel that way, it takes away a lot of trust because it makes no sense. It's like, how can I be surrounded by so many people yet feel this way? But that's where it all comes down to. It's all in your mind. But it's all in your mind, but you need help.
At this point, do you know that you have all these issues? Have you tried to seek any help, or anybody pointed you to that direction?
Not at all. Because even at the hospital, they kept asking if I had any like issues, and I said no. I was just tipsy. No, I just wanted to sleep. No.
So Rehema, sorry to take you back.
No, it's okay.
How? I don't want you to be so graphic with the whole scenario, but just walk us through that moment. How were you found in the room? How did you end up in the hospital? You know, what was that situation? How did the family? How did you react when you woke up? Just walk us, paint us a little bit into that journey of yours that day, and if you're comfortable, we don't want to.
Oh yes, definitely comfortable. So after I sent Kezi the text message, I went to the balcony and I threw my phone out, and I went and laid down. I don't know how long I laid down for, but the next thing I noticed was my dad waking me up. And at this point, I was still at my friend's house. I was on her bed. So I noticed my dad. And then my dad, he was crying. He was like, Rehema, wake up. Because I had texted my sister. So my sister texted she called my family that lived closer to the house that I was. So my dad came and then he woke me up. But before he got there, they said that he had called the police. So they took me into the ambulance, and then when I got to the hospital, I was out of it, and by the time I woke up, my whole family was there, and then they told me that they had to pump my stomach. But what's crazy is that I wish they would have kept me there, because then it would have prevented a lot of things that happened. But then that's where you go back and say some things are meant to happen when they happen. So after that, we went back to normal life, but they didn't touch on it again.
So you never had this go ahead.
So then you say you wanted your parents to hear you, or so that's this was you saying, okay, I've been telling you these things, but now I want you. So now, did they hear you?
No, they didn't hear me, and that's where sometimes I sit down and I wonder if everybody has some type of trauma that we don't notice that other people have trauma. So it's like we so traumatic that we don't see that people have a sickness.
And at this point, was there any because they probably did not know what mental health looked like.
No, they didn't.
Like. Yeah,
very true.
And it could be it's lack of education, or knowledge of what mental health looks like. I'm not making excuses.
Stigma.
Yeah,
there's a stigma that comes with mental health.
Yeah.
When someone is said to have a mental illness, there's a way in which we Africans look at this person. So my thinking is, even the parents, you wish or you hope nobody in you around you in your circle has that. Quick question: what message did you send to your sister? To make her call someone close to you to come to get you?
I believe I said, I love you. You may never see me again. I'm going to sleep.
Wow.
Now, I know we've had stories in the past here in Minnesota where people who are struggling have sent those messages, on Facebook. And so how should someone respond to that?
I would say don't take it as a joke.
Okay.
And I would love to give an example with something that just happened not too long ago. I won't say names, but later on I am going to start saying names because I've come to realize that if you don't know that you need help, maybe if I know that you need help, then let me do something about it. Let me not just let you keep going because you don't know. So I was in Colorado. This is before I came back here because I just returned to Minnesota not too long ago. And I saw a status from this woman. We're not close. But what she said was, I don't want to be alive anymore. and life is so this and this. But this has happened a few times to where I actually go and reach out to see if people can check on this person. So I did the same thing with this person. But later on, it came back to me that she was just drunk. But I said, don't take it as just that.
Very true.
Because some of us are hiding under substance abuse,
Yeah.
but it's really not that.
Yeah.
There are deeper issues.
There are deeper issues.
Man, keep going, Rehema.
There are deeper issues. So seeing that I was around people who loved how energetic I was, yet they weren't able to see the sickness that I had. But even too, I grew to be able to hide it because then I didn't want to explain myself to people. But that kills you faster, even faster.
Wow. Rehema, so that we continue connecting these dots, your parents, your siblings, throughout the journey from Rwanda to Tanzania to Zambia to Uganda, Tanzania, moving on. I think you mentioned that they too might have had their form of trauma.
I truly believe they
truly
did.
believe.
Yes.
When you look back, what would you tell them if you've not had that conversation with them? And you don't have to, but I'm just thinking because you all went the same journey. You're probably in the same bus, probably in the same train, probably in the same flight, right?
Yes.
You land here, but you're dealing with some issues, but they're probably dealing with them. It's only that they're manifesting them differently.
Yes.
So we cannot sit and assume that these young people who are going through this, maybe even in their own household, that's why it's being missed there.
Yes.
Because there could be a need for help. Again, that's your family. Don't want to get there, but so use your discretion.
And then also, how did they handle it? How do they navigate the same environment? You're sharing this environment with your brothers and your sisters. You have your own experience. You have the same parents. You probably go to the same school. And how differently do all of you handle these transitions?
I would say they handled it. I have an older brother who I follow who had a little similar issue, and as a family, we never noticed it. But like I said, we didn't know what it was.
Yes.
So with them, I would say, being that I was much younger than them, but sometimes I could see things that weren't normal, but there's certain things that I couldn't fully understand. But I also believe that they probably had their time in Zambia because it's the whole thing of the teenage years. That time of becoming a young woman, a young man, just that little section. So I think they handled it a little bit better, but also maybe they didn't have the right time or the right space because when you come to America and you're able to get a job, go get a job and go to school. So that's what my siblings did. But us as young kids, we just went to school and I did the dishes, I cooked. That was my only thing. But they also had to pay the bill. So maybe they didn't even have.
Those were their dishes.
There you
that
go.
was the struggle. So,
Yes.
but talk to your parents. What do you want to say to them?
My
Just talk to them.
parents, I love them dearly. First of all, I do not know how they raised 6 children and managed to get us all through whatever they did. And now that I'm 30 years old, I know that by the time my mother was 30, she had a few children. But thinking how I don't think I have responsibilities, I say, because I have bills. But let's think of our parents who have kids, multiple kids before they're even 25 sometimes, the responsibility they have. So the fact that I can look at myself and see where I am as the person that I am, it makes me happy that my parents were able to raise me, but also the fact that they did what they could do as parents to provide for their children.
Very true.
And that's why, as you young kids who are so mad at your parents, please sit down and see what your parents are doing for you. Sometimes we feel entitled that our parents should do this for us because they gave birth to us, but we shouldn't be, because how many parents leave their children and just go do their thing? So my parents, I understand them. I forgive them for I won't say I forgive them for not understanding me, but I would forgive them for not taking the time to try to understand me. But also the 2 suicide attempts that happened, I made sure they happened away from my family. Because if my family had seen me in that state, I think I would have traumatized them. But I feel like because I had known how sick I was for as long as I did, so knowing that I was just getting worse because I wasn't getting any help, so I was like, you know what, let me just detach myself from everybody. And some things that happened to me in California, I'm happy they didn't happen to me here in Minnesota where I know people.
Wow.
Yes.
Kenan.
Yes, I think let's have a final, because we have a lot to talk about, and it's either we can fit it in one episode.
No.
We can fit it in one episode. So Rehema, when you come back for part two, we want you to take us through the subsequent suicide attempts. Still focus on your low moments, but we don't want to dwell on your low moments. So once we get and not minimizing, once we focus on that and give it the attention it deserves, we want you now to tell us the come up.
Oh, yes.
We want to focus on that. We want to focus on your come up. How that looked like, the treatment process if you went through any, but then where are you now? So that will be part 2. But before that, I'll let you give us a minute, final word, a minute, and then this gentleman will do that, and then we'll finish part 1. Go ahead.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for inviting me. And I mean this when I say this. Let's try to be more patient with ourselves. We do not need to suffer the way we're suffering. We do not need to stress the way we're stressing. And maybe I'm saying this because I've overcame that. And sometimes maybe some people might say, well, I don't get stressed like that. But let's be nice to each other. Let's not help each other because we want something from each other, but rather say, you are my fellow. First of all, we talk about the African community. So let's come together as an African community. I'm not Kenyan. But if I told you how many Kenyans I've had to text somebody else to check on them to see if they're okay, I can't even count. But that's why I say, let's look at less of like where we come from and look like, let's help each other. We're human. So thank you for listening, and thank you for inviting me over next time again.
It's not goodbye.
It's not goodbye. Don't say goodbye.
Oh, see you later.
It's not goodbye.
Next one is coming.
I know.
Yes, Ezra, I will let you go first.
I know
this time,
so that I keep it short. They say that it takes the right minds to implement human rights. And I think at the heart of that is that if you don't see a person for who they are, you're likely going to miss the opportunity to help them out. Yes. Don't see skin, don't see gender, don't see height, don't see color, see a human being, and then let your heart, and I believe if you believe in a higher being, guide you through how to help whoever is out there, who you are, the answer to their cry.
Yes.
How do you come back? How do you come back from that?
Mic drop.
Go ahead, Collins. Good luck.
Well, I'll go back to our truth minute for today. Love.
Yes.
Love one another. And this is the message she has been emphasizing here. Let us love one another. Check on that person.
Yes.
Check on our friends. Check so that to make sure that all of us are fine.
Yes.
You know, life is like a flower. There's a song that used to say that today it's there, tomorrow it's not there. We are better together. So let us love one another.
Mine is just to the parents. Parents, if your kids could be saying something, they could be trying to communicate a very deep issue that they're going through. So give them that opportunity. Listen to them. And for the parents too, if you are going through something, it is okay also to ask for help as parents. It's not going to hurt your ego. It's not going to hurt your standing in the community, but it'll help you and help your kids.
Exactly.
That was this episode. We thank you, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.